At this time, I would like to then formally introduce Mayor Papenfuss. The Honorable Eric Papenfuss took the oath of office as the mayor of the city of Harrisburg on January 6, 2014, leading a movement to revitalize the city's economy and restore trust in government. A successful businessman, Eric Papenfuss was elected on a platform of uniting the residents of Harrisburg to work toward the common goal of building a better community through attracting business and investment, improving education, and restoring pride and prosperity to the state capital. With the motto, "Together we can," Papenfuss inspired thousands of people to place their confidence in him and to lead Harrisburg out of a period of economic and political malaise. Born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1971 to an elementary school reading teacher and a state government archivist, Papenfuss attended Yale University for college and graduate school. He studied American history and government and was the only member of his undergraduate class to earn both Bachelor and Master of Arts degrees in 4 years, summa cum laude. A published author and prize-winning scholar, his teaching and research explore the moral dilemmas of slavery during the fractious national political environment in the years after the American Revolution. A former public school teacher, Papenfuss taught Latin at Central Dauphin East and Littlestown junior high schools, where he served as chair of the foreign language department. Mayor Papenfuss lives in Harrisburg with his wife Kathy and their 3 children. He settled in Harrisburg in 1999 after his wife accepted a post as assistant professor of history at Messiah College. It was not long after their move to Harrisburg that the couple went into the book business, a decision that has enriched the entire region and led to his eventual election as the city's mayor. Mayor Papenfuss is committed to fiscal responsibility and government accountability as he leads the city out of financial crisis. He has appointed competent and dedicated heads of city government departments and has instituted strong checks and balances to maintain close tabs on spending. To make Harrisburg strong once again, Mayor Papenfuss has identified 3 strategic areas of focus to focus attention during his administration: light and beautification, crime and safety, education and youth. Would you greet with me this afternoon, Mayor Eric Papenfuss?
Thank you very much. And thank you all. It is good to be here today. Thank you for having me back. Hard to believe. It's been almost 3 years now that I've been mayor. I listened to that bio and I think, boy, that was not only an unlikely journey, but it's been quite an amazing journey over the past 3 years in government. So I have some prepared remarks, which I will read to you, and then I thought we could have some Q&A for the rest of the time. Be very happy to take your questions and go back and forth. I have to warn you, though, I just came from Harrisburg Catholic Elementary, and the 5th grade class there just grilled me with tough questions. I got, among others, for the first time ever, what is your net worth? That has to be Donald Trump influenced somehow. I don't know how. And questions about my ties, my favorite ride at Hershey Park, and it was very difficult, but we survived. But I'm happy to take your questions here today too. And some of you may have seen the news yesterday. It's been a really exciting week for Harrisburg. I got to test drive yesterday the first autonomous car. Really in Pennsylvania, outside of Carnegie Mellon, where they've sort of pioneered the technology. And literally sat in the driver's seat, and the car drove me all the way around the Capitol complex, down 3rd Street, all the way up to 7th Street, down Walnut Street. The technology was amazing. It has cameras and sensors and radios inside, which allow it to determine the color of a light, whether a pedestrian is darting out, where the curbs and the street lines are. It was amazing. So that is something which is certainly revolutionizing transportation, and that technology is all right here in Pennsylvania, pioneered really by Carnegie Mellon. So very interesting week. But let me give you a little bit of an overview here. I took some time to put some thoughts down on paper. And, but before I begin, I want to sincerely thank the officers and members of the Kiwanis Club for your support of the city of Harrisburg. Your record of service to children is exemplary, and it's not only in Harrisburg, of course, it is around the world. So thank you, and I'm here because I want to be here. Your work to eliminate diseases that plague children and families in the developing world, and your commitment to provide scholarships to local youth has helped hundreds of Harrisburg youth fulfill their dreams and attend college. And I'm pleased to report all those fifth graders today, they all wanted to attend college, and they all have great dreams, and I can't wait to see them fulfill them. So thank you for your dedication to our children and our community. And considering your love of children, I know you'll be pleased to hear about a program that we just launched, a really exciting program that I can't say enough about last year, to tackle a very serious problem in our city, and that is the issue of lead poisoning in our children and youth. Earlier this year, I held a press conference at the Hamilton Health Center to announce children under 6 years old, because of this program, can now be offered free testing for elevated lead levels in their blood. And this partnership that we have between the city and Hamilton Health, which is unlike any other partnership in the country, is now months old, and hundreds of children have been tested and offered treatment at the Hamilton Health Center. All of which has been made possible by a $3.7 million grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in a program to tackle lead poisoning in children. And I'm sure you know that lead poisoning can lead to serious learning disabilities in children and impact educational achievement. And that's why it's so important to move to address this problem in our city that is directly connected to our aging housing stock. One of the reasons that we love to live in Harrisburg is because of the wonderful historical neighborhoods and architecture, but we know that 90%, believe it or not, 90% of our housing stock was in fact, of course, built before 1978. And that means that the overwhelming majority of our homes do have lead paint in them, and that can threaten the health of thousands of children in our city, especially as houses fall into disrepair and the paint begins to chip. Young children are particularly vulnerable as they like the taste of peeling paint. It can be slightly sweet, and that is just a real problem in many of our neighborhoods. So the new lead testing program provides hope in reaching children at risk for lead poisoning. And under the new program, when families visit the Hamilton Health Center, they'll ask parents about lead paint in their homes, and they'll offer to come out and immediately not only test children for lead in their bloodstreams, but also test the homes. And this is allowing us to move quickly to identify and get treatment to children who were exposed to lead paint. And we're going further than this. We're also working to remove lead from the homes where there are children, and through what is a part of this program, which is a lead abatement portion of the program. And that's being run by the city's Department of Building and Housing and Development, and it offers assistance to low and moderate income families as well as to rental property owners that are serving low and moderate income families, and it has enough money for us to upgrade homes to make them entirely lead safe for children. And the program thus far has made more than 800 homes lead safe in Harrisburg, and we're working to try and reach as many homes in this cycle of the funding as the money will allow to eradicate lead poisoning from our city. We're saving lives, but we still have an awful lot of work to do in reaching at-risk children. We're sending people into the neighborhoods, we're in the schools, we're in the churches, we're in the daycare centers. We're actively trying to spread the word about both lead testing and the opportunities for the program, and also about how simple tips in how to maintain a safe and healthy home. We've got flyers posted around the city in English and Spanish. We're making sure to have information easily understood by all ages to help keep children away from peeling paint. So I thought this is an example of a place where you could help. If you know of a family at risk, let them know that there is help. Go to the Harrisburg website, which is harrisburgpa.gov. Click there on the knowledge database, which is a really interesting feature if you haven't been there. It's very easy to use. It has answers to all of the most frequently asked questions that come into the city. Type in the word lead, hit the search bar, and it'll give you all the information you need to know about the programs. You can also call 311, which is another initiative of this administration. We successfully implemented a 311 system for the city, which has been very, very successful. You can now just call 311. You'll go straight to an operator in City Hall. You can relay your concern about a pothole or the fact that the trash wasn't picked up or anything going on in the city. It'll generate a work ticket that's trackable and measurable. We will follow up with the departments on your behalf. You'll get a response, and that has greatly improved customer service here in Harrisburg. But you can call 311. Ask about lead, and they'll help give you the information you need to know about the programs. And you can also reach out to the Hamilton Health Center, which, if you haven't seen, has really become a bedrock in our community. They do wonderful, wonderful work, and they have been joining us in this partnership to help save as many children as possible. So I thought that the lead program would be of particular interest to your club, but there's an awful lot of great news going on right now in the city of Harrisburg. We really have turned a corner and are clearly now in the midst of an economic recovery. Under my administration, the city has, in fact, had a balanced budget for the last 3 years. And I'll pause here and say that's really an extraordinary achievement for Harrisburg. We had years and years and years of simply spending more money than we had money coming in, of borrowing to sort of cover that spending, and then of amassing debt after debt after debt. All of that came due, as many of you know, several years ago, and we've moved out of it, and we've gotten ourselves on a sustainable footing. And we've done it by doing, some things that maybe weren't the most popular things. We had to increase what's called the local services tax, which is a tax that workers pay when they work in the city of Harrisburg. But that money has allowed us to have a sustainable, long-term budget for the city of Harrisburg. The majority of properties in the city of Harrisburg are tax exempt, and you also know that during the day, our population doubles by all the commuters. So the local services tax is a means of having others who don't live in the city contribute to the tax base of the city and give us a sustainable dynamic moving forward. And that has been a very important achievement, and it's one that is, over time, going to allow the city to really sustain itself and begin to grow. Just in the past weeks and months, we've seen more and more businesses opening in the city, more and more young people moving into the now chic apartments and homes that are coming up in downtown and midtown. And it seems like every other week we're holding a ribbon cutting or a press conference announcing some new business or new real estate development. Let me highlight a few. We have some very clear trends in the city of Harrisburg. We have a trend to take older office building stock and turn them into a sort of high-end urban living, either rental or condominium projects. Strawberry Square has been doing that with their flats project, which is overbooked. Other developers have been doing that. We've got a great new project that the governor just announced 2 weeks ago on 3rd Street at the old Ron Brown Charter School, if you all know where that is. That's a project where the state has put RCAP development money into to help make it possible, and they're renovating that entire school to turn it into sort of a mixed-use space of apartments above, vibrant commercial startup business on the 1st floor. And they're also taking some dilapidated other buildings that are along 3rd Street. This is WCI Partners, and they are turning those into new viable office space. So a great project. I don't know if you all have been to the new Millworks Brewery. Have you seen that yet? Incredible investment, all private investment by Josh Kessler and his family. They took that abandoned Millworks building. They not only turned it into an amazing farm-to-table restaurant and artists' studios, but they've just expanded to a rooftop deck, which truly has some of the nicest views of the whole city. The Broad Street Market is thriving. We have a new nonprofit board which is poised to take over for the market and looking to fundraise to be able to do capital improvements and all sorts of other things. But the market has really never been stronger. People are coming from all over because this allure of urban living, which everyone wants, is really at full force in Harrisburg. You can walk to work, you can live inexpensively, and you can live in one of the wonderful historic neighborhoods that we have. So these are extraordinary things. And with that residential movement has also come new businesses. And we're something in an emergent technology bubble, which is a very positive thing to see. Harrisburg University has been doing a lot of work. Their enrollment is way up. And we have a variety of tech firms coming to Harrisburg, liking the ability to walk to work, live in a low-cost city as opposed to New York or Philadelphia or even Baltimore, and still be able to do some of the most cutting-edge work anywhere in the country. So while all of that is going on, there is no question that we're seeing a boom that is going to lead to more population, more people moving into the city, a more sustainable tax base for the long term, and we've been able to do all that with a balanced budget. And there's been a lot of hard work over the past 3 years to deal with a lot of the problems that have historically plagued Harrisburg. Our blight eradication efforts now in the city are really starting to bear fruit. We have demolished this year dozens of vacant and dangerous buildings in the city. And what we've been able to do as well is we've transformed city services into a new fund called the Neighborhood Services Fund. And that's a fund which is paid for out of the utility trash bills. And basically, we have reclaimed a lot of trash accounts that had been in the private sector. They'd been, and we're really the only city that has done this anywhere in Pennsylvania successfully. We've reclaimed those accounts, we've provided better service, we've increased our number of city workers, and as a result, we've been able to do other things such as maintain our parks, deal with infrastructure, clean up our neighborhoods. More to come on that, because our main initiative in the new budget that we're going to propose in November is the hiring of more neighborhood services workers sustained by this fund, this Neighborhood Services Fund. So we are focused very strongly on making all of our neighborhoods safe and attractive places to live and to raise families. We're focused on improving our parks and playgrounds. And you may have heard, we've just announced a new study sponsored by the Commonwealth to reimagine Reservoir Park. This is very exciting. We have really the crown jewel of our park system in the center of Harrisburg and Reservoir Park. It hasn't really been imagined or thought about for decades. We've hired H. Edward Black and Associates. They're going to be working with the city. We have a steering committee of residents, and we're recommending ways that Reservoir Park can really reach its full potential. Do we need new walking trails? Do we want to have new basketball courts with pervious pavement? Do we want to have a spray park, a water park? What do we want to do? Because right now it's a very traditional park. It basically takes our maintenance workers about 6 days. I mean, it's literally a continuous mowing cycle to mow, to maintain just these grassy lawns. Do we need urban meadows? Do we need, walking trails? There are a lot of things that we can do to sort of bring this park into the new century and make better use of that land. The Commonwealth has been very, very supportive of this. We've not only received money to imagine Reservoir Park, but we've already started to receive grants to redo 5 of our 19 city playgrounds. And this winter, the old equipment is being taken up. There have been a series of visioning sessions, and all 5 of those parks are going to be completely redone due to a grant from the Commonwealth, and that's just the start. So it's really quite exciting. We remain committed to doing all we can do to provide opportunities to mentor our youth, including businesses to provide summer jobs and internships for students. And because of your mission, you clearly understand that youth need these opportunities to learn and grow. You know that youth need to stay busy and stay out of trouble. Let me tell you, I'll divert from the script for a minute as well and say we had a very successful program this summer, innovative program where we hired youth with money that comes to the city as what's called the host fee. It's money that basically the city gets because there's an incinerator in our community. It's $1 a ton. And we took that money and we put youth to work throughout the city of Harrisburg cleaning up the city, picking up trash, and learning about environmental issues. Let me talk a little bit about environmental issues in a moment, because that's been a sort of signature of the past 3 years. But they would do that in the morning, and then in the afternoons they'd have lunches like this with business leaders and community leaders, and they'd learn about opportunities in the community for jobs as well as future career development. It was a great program. It took 75 kids, some of our poorest kids from the housing authorities developments on the south side and elsewhere in Harrisburg, and put them to work literally picking up trash and making the community look better. And that job program has grown. Started with 25, went to 50, and now 75 kids, and it's an example of how we're trying to keep kids actively engaged. Our summer programming really expanded this year too. We went from not only having programming at the parks and the playgrounds, outdoors, with field trips and fun things to do during the summer, but we also had some evening sort of drop-in places where teens and others could go and hang out in a safe, clear environment. And of course we got our pools open, which hadn't been open for many years until I took over. We put in the time and energy to get them going. We offered some free swims, and we really did a good job, I think, keeping our youth constantly engaged over what which can otherwise be a long and hot summer. And the festivals, how about the festivals? We'll say something about them, but they've really been on track, and I thought this year's Kipona was really one of the best. So because of your mission, you understand these needs for our youth to have opportunities to learn and grow. You know that youth need to stay busy, to stay out of trouble. And I want to call upon you again this year to use your influence on the business community to get more companies to support our efforts and opportunities to offer summer jobs to our young people. As an aside, I can say one of the personally most rewarding and beneficial experiences I've had as in my hat as co-owner of our bookstore with my wife. It was joining this program, signing up to sponsor a Harrisburg High School student, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, for the summer, give them an opportunity for their first job. Pay them as basically a paid intern and teach them the ropes and the expectations of what a work environment is like. A lot of our kids don't have those opportunities. If we had every business in Harrisburg sponsoring a youth for the summer, we'd have a much safer city. We would have a more connected city, and it would really go a long way to helping Harrisburg. So I encourage all of you, and if you want more information about that for next summer, planning for next summer, also just contact the city. We have a long list of students that would love to be sponsored and would love to have something to do over the course of the summer. We can help maybe make that match between your company and them. So I don't think it's hard to feel the dynamism that's once again developing in the city of Harrisburg. I think it's in a large part due to volunteers and organizations such as you all, which work hard to, every week it seems, sponsor a cleanup drive or another program or a charity run or a walk, always encouraging a spirit of commitment and optimism for the future of our city. Your work is paying off. The city is definitely improving. We're attracting more people every day to live, work, and play. And, I think you saw it as well in this year's Kipona as thousands of people from throughout the region sort of came in, saw on the beautiful banks of the Susquehanna River, saw a lot of the changes that were occurring in the city, maybe noticed those new LED streetlights for the first time, noticed the recycle bins throughout the park for the first time. I wanted to say that one of the things that I am truly most proud of is that we took the city 3 years ago from recycling virtually nothing. I mean, we had the lowest recycling rate anywhere to more than tripling our recycling output. And we're now recycling cardboard. We do mixed-use recycling. We increased the size of all the containers that we give everyone. We've taken recycling. We are a model for how you can increase recycling in an urban environment right now. It's really extraordinary. And we currently have plans to establish, in partnership with the school district, a brand new composting center for the city of Harrisburg. that Susquehanna Township is very excited about partnering with us on, and so we'll have an intermunicipal recycling or composting center, which is not only going to allow us to deal with leaves and yard waste, but we're also going to try and be at the forefront of reusing food waste. And this is a program we're sort of trying to pilot and pioneer with the Harrisburg School District in an effort to help them deal with a lot of their trash volume. It's simply food. So how can we combine, the carbons of the leaves with the nitrates of the food to establish a vibrant composting center, which could actually over time even come close to sustaining itself through the sale of wonderful product and soil and mulch and everything else for the surrounding communities. So that's a sense of Harrisburg planning for the future. I think there's no question that we are the anchor of our Commonwealth. I think you saw that as Carnegie Mellon came to the Capitol to sort of show off its latest technology. Harrisburg really can be an example of all that is possible within Pennsylvania again. And I want to thank you for inviting me to come speak to you. I applaud you for all of your civic pride, for believing in our city and its people. I do look forward to working with you to continue to make Harrisburg really the best it can be. And I believe this is a wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family. So thank you for supporting all of our initiatives. And with that, we have 15 minutes for questions, and I will take questions on any topic except my net worth. We will not do that. Yes. Yeah.
Two areas. We don't hear much about what's happening with the incinerator. Update us on that. And in another life, I have an interest in the fire service. Every July, there's a big muster on the riverfront, the pump climbers muster, and that whole front area, the steps, the lack of lighting and so forth is really bad. And I'm hearing a rumor that there's a plan to redo this. If you could comment on that. And also about South Harrisburg, there's no fire service in South Harrisburg.
3 questions. All right. Okay. All right, so the first question was, you haven't heard much about the incinerator lately. Isn't that a good thing? Yes, that's a wonderful thing. I think we heard about the incinerator all the time for a long time. Actually, Laxwama, which is the municipal authority which took over the city, it basically bought the incinerator from Harrisburg. They've done a wonderful job managing the incinerator, and they are in the process of making even more upgrades to that facility. They're building a new drop-off center. They've made it easier for people to go in and out. One of the concerns when we sold the incinerator was that there was this thing called the put or pay. They agreed to buy the incinerator, but we pledged that for the next 20 years we would bring them a certain minimum level of trash. And if we didn't make that minimum, we'd have to pay them for it whether or not we had enough trash to do it. That was something that concerned me a lot, especially because I knew that the city needed to increase its recycling. And I didn't want it to be a disincentive for us taking hundreds and hundreds of tons of recyclable materials out of the trash stream. And that's one of the reasons we focused on eliminating private haulers in the city, because we had a problem with a sort of unbalanced dynamic between, it costs almost $200 a ton to take your trash to the incinerator in Harrisburg, but if you're outside of the city, it costs $90 a ton. So you had private haulers coming into the city, picking up their trash and then not depositing it as they were supposed to at the incinerator. And we stopped that leakage, basically. So we brought those accounts back to the incinerator while at the same time increasing our recycling. They compensated for one another. The new accounts sort of filled in the gap for the recycling, and we've been able to make our put or pay. We're right on track with that. So actually everything is working extremely well with the incinerator, and let's keep it out of the news. I think that's key. Your other question was about, Riverfront Park. And you may have noticed that there is an area of Riverfront Park where we upgraded the concrete, and that's all down in Shipoke. That area was upgraded. And we've done a major sort of lighting project where we have changed all the major street lights. Now, Our next phase of that lighting project is to go in and do some exciting things, such as with Lighten Up Harrisburg, work on illuminating the Market Street Bridge, which with under lighting with various colors that can really be terrific. We have some plans for the Walnut Street pedestrian bridge. And we also have some preliminary plans for how we'd like to upgrade the lighting in the park, in Riverfront Park, as you've described. We're going to have to find either grant funding or public-private partnerships or a variety of other ways to raise the necessary resources. But I will say I love the Pump Primers event. I know people that come in from far and wide to see that. It's so much fun. If you haven't had a chance to go down and sort of see that event on the banks of the river, you need to. And then I guess the other question was about a future fire station. Well, right now the city's been focused on trying to determine a long-term home for its public works facility. One of the things about the incinerator was when we sold the property, we lost our public works facility. We've had to rent space that's been back in the news a little bit lately in the short term. And we're looking at a public works facility that would be somewhere in the South Harrisburg vicinity. And then the question is, if we're going to do that, could we expand that to be both a public works facility and possibly a police substation and possibly a new fire station of sorts? So we're having those conversations as we speak. Although I will say the fire department is flourishing. We've had another year, very thankfully, with no fire deaths in the city of Harrisburg. It's almost unheard of anywhere else, especially with the older building stock that we have. We have hired a lot of firefighters, and we are currently hiring more firefighters, and we've got great leadership in Chief Enterline, who has run that department, I think, extremely well. He's one of these guys that is very conscious of his budget, but also of making sure that we have the best equipment always. And interesting, I'll announce this. I don't know if it's been fully announced yet, but there's going to be a big fundraiser for the fire department. It's going to be coming up here within the next month. It's going to be at the Vartan lot on Front Street. They're planning to do a nice event with Zero Day Brewing and others to have I think there's going to be a bonfire and just some other very positive things. So take a look for that. That's coming up if you want to come up and support our fire department. But actually, morale in the fire department is probably as good as it's ever been right now. And we're going to keep it that way, mainly because we've been bringing in some really wonderful new firefighters. Morale in the police, that's another issue. We can talk about that if you'd like. But go ahead. Yep.
Just a quick question. So, I mean, I think it's clear, and you've acknowledged that a lot of folks come into the city to work from outside areas. What are your thoughts on how easy it is to get in and out of the city? It doesn't take much for there to be significant traffic jams, and all the arteries kind of obviously connect together. So it doesn't take much for traffic to be solved. What are your thoughts on how that's going in terms of folks coming in and out of the city, traffic patterns? And are there any projects in place or on the horizon that will help to improve that?
Good. There are. So first I'll mention, we had, I think we had a very successful conversion of North Front Street from 3 lanes down to 2 lanes. And that was something that I pushed for, that a lot of neighbors pushed for, but I think there was some anxiety. It was very unpopular. At first, people were very concerned that it was going to add to the traffic congestion. It really hasn't added to the traffic congestion. It was designed very well. It's actually become easier, I think, to drive and safer to drive on North Front Street. So there are ways to do this well, and there are plans. I mean, we would like to see, from a city perspective, the transferring of commuter traffic from 2nd Street to 7th Street. And we'd like to see 2nd Street return to 2 ways. This is going to happen. We do have the blessing from PennDOT to do this, but in order for that to happen, we're looking to make a series of upgrades to make it easier for that traffic to flow up 7th Street. And then you'll have a choice of either going up to Cameron, or better yet, what PennDOT would really like to see would be going down to Division and then down Division and out to Front Street, where there's a lot of underutilized capacity and wide roads. The major, and the city also has some ideas about how we could, and this is on the long-term project list, perhaps have a bridge that goes from the Uptown Plaza area down 7th and Division over the train tracks to Hack, which would then, in Elmerton Avenue, up that way, which would allow traffic to sort of get out of the city in an entirely different way and relieve the sort of bottleneck of these train tracks and these very congested, whether it's Maclay Street or Hearst Street. From a PennDOT perspective, we are widening the Maclay Street Bridge. That project is happening and going on right now. They have done some signalization testing and changing on Cameron Street to try and improve that traffic flow, but the reality is Cameron Street's at full capacity. There's so many commuters, there's not much they can do to do that. And as a sign of progress, look at what's happened at that former David Dodd property that was blighted and abandoned. It's turning into the World Trade Center of Harrisburg. It's going to be filled with jobs. They've done an amazing, multi-million dollar renovation, and that's all good news, but from a traffic standpoint, it means more people are going to be coming in and commuting. The biggest transportation initiative that will impact Harrisburg is PennDOT's plan to widen 83 and create potentially a new southern gateway. Not as it was described in the past, but simply an additional on-ramp and exit ramp off 83 into the city. That is supposedly going to happen in the next decade. It's a major initiative of PennDOT. They know they need to do it, and that affects sort of regional traffic patterns for everything. So there's a lot going on in the city at the moment. And we recognize, and we're thrilled that we are a commuter city, and that our population does double during the day. And but we also want to encourage people to maybe consider buying a home in Harrisburg and walking to work, and maybe getting away from that car. And instead, seeing what it's like. We're a very bikeable city. We're a very walkable city. And part of what we need to do is incentivize that. So I know Pinnacle Health and other employers have really tried to incentivize city living. The city has its own incentive plan now, since it's no longer required by contract that a firefighter or a police officer or others live in the city. Well, we'll give money towards a down payment. HYP has done that for years. So I guess the long-term answer for the good of the city and everyone is to hopefully have commuters have enough confidence to want to live in Harrisburg, because our population is about half of what it once was 50 years ago, and there's a lot of capacity for more residents, and that would really be the answer from an environmental standpoint, from a transportation standpoint, from a fiscal standpoint for the capital. Okay, yes, sir.
What about that neighborhood that has all the sinkholes? I think I heard recently that the government's going to buy out the homes. What's going to happen to that area?
Good question. That's something that I'm very proud of as well. We, when I took office almost immediately, we had a very unfortunate situation where we had a sinkhole open up in South Harrisburg. This is South 14th Street. That whole area of Harrisburg, really everything south of 83, is over a limestone bedrock geology, which is very prone to sinkholes. It doesn't exist here in the downtown, but it does in South Harrisburg. And it's a real problem. At that time, the federal government had no disaster relief for sinkholes. They did not consider sinkholes like floods or tornadoes or other types of disasters. We held a conference in Harrisburg right here at the Hilton. We got national attention, and we got them to change their policy and make sinkholes eligible. And that we did that with bipartisan support from our senators and our legislators on the federal level. We then applied for that support, and initially were passed over for Palmyra, which also has its own sinkhole problem, and that's a real issue. But we continued to persevere, and just a few weeks ago, we got word that they would indeed fund the sinkhole project. And they're paying for a portion of it. The Commonwealth is also going to pay for a portion of it, and the county is going to pay for a portion of it. And it all has to do with disaster relief funds that are tied to the old tropical storm Irene, which came through a few years back. Because water and raising water levels are really what causes sinkholes. And that washed away an awful lot of structure, which led to the exacerbation of the problem. So what's going to happen is the homes are going to be purchased at fair market value. the residents are going to be relocated, and there's a degree of relocation expenses, not only for homeowners, but for renters and people that are currently living there. The homes are going to be demolished, and we are going to turn that block into a public park, which we can do, which is actually a good use of the land. It's going to stay as green space, and we will have to put a surface covering over that whole area, which will allow grass and some fields and other things to occur on top of it, but which will prevent the water from going directly down and exacerbating the sinkholes. The engineers have a plan for this. So the net result is you'll turn an area of South Harrisburg into public green space, and that will add to perhaps the city's park system, but it will be a good solution for those families, and it was great resources. And that's turning into about a $10 million project. So imagine, that's an example of something which is really beyond the city's resources or a municipality's resources, and it really does require federal and state help. And I'm glad that the governor and the federal government have all recognized the importance of addressing sinkholes, because it will be a continuing problem. And I'll say one more economic development thing. I know we're low on time, but this is a big deal too. You may have read that the governor has pledged millions of dollars to renovate the transportation center, the train station downtown. And PennDOT is very interested in doing everything from improving the rate of commutes and trains to Pittsburgh, to upgrading the station, to encouraging more people to want to live near the station and shop near the station, and then hopefully ride the bus or take the train to work. Maybe work outside of the city, maybe work in Lancaster, maybe work somewhere else. And they have sponsored they're not only going to upgrade the station, but they are looking to acquire land and help work as redevelopment partners with the city to bring in a variety of redevelopment uses that will reimagine that whole area of the city, which is right now basically a big surface parking lot with some abandoned buildings like the old Patriot News building and other abandoned buildings. That area has so much potential, and if developed well, into sort of mixed commercial and residential use, and not surface parking, but maybe some parking structures as a part of the whole thing. It could be, that has the opportunity to really take off as the next hot area for Harrisburg development. So thank you for that question. And I will take one last question. I think we have time for one last question. Yes, we do. Yes, sir.
Is the idea of a commuter train from Lancaster to Harrisburg to Carlisle a dead one?
It is not a dead one as far as I'm concerned, and we do have plans to, and this was also funded by the state government, to do something with the old Cat Bridge, which is the bridge that is near the hospital and goes across the Susquehanna all the way. It sort of goes over City Island and then to Cumberland County. That bridge is going to be upgraded to a biking and pedestrian trail, and as part of those upgrades, there's going to be the ability to keep that bridge available and open for maybe a future light rail use or other type of commuter traffic use. And we're working really hard to sort of break down those borders that separate Dauphin County and Cumberland County especially. We're seeing that in transportation as well. There's an effort to sort of take CAT, which is the public bus transportation center here, and broaden it, expand it to include Lebanon and York and eventually Lancaster, to have a wider regional authority. And there's been some resistance to that, but from each side of the river, not necessarily wanting to cooperate. But I see that bridge project as sort of being a symbolic way to unite the counties. And I've talked to the Cumberland County commissioners, and they're very excited about having that connection to the city. I think in ways that maybe we weren't 10 years or 20 years ago when the Walnut Street Bridge got washed away, and there seemed to be an unnecessary artificial divide. So I'd love to see commuter rail opportunities between, say, here and Carlisle. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for your time. Good to see you. Right on schedule, right? Okay.